many ways, I've lived the dream. Born in the south end of Boston, starting on the factory floor, having an opportunity to work my way up the ladder in order to be the assistant to the president of the largest division, serving as a state representative, the district attorney, the United States attorney, as the director of ATF. It was likely probably higher dreams than my parents had for their 7 kids. And my parents had big dreams for 2 of us. I had 4 children, 2 of their school in college. I had big dreams for my kids as well. I'm in this race because I'm fearful. The dreams that my parents had for me, the dreams that I have for my 4 children, the dreams that your parents have for you, will be unfulfilled if we continue down this path. We can't sustain the level of deficits and debt that our Congress and our White House has given us over these last 7 or 8 years. And when they project it out, it's more deficits and debt, going to $24 or $25 trillion. When Dwight Eisenhower left the White House, 51 cents out of every dollar was used for national defense. Today it's 19 cents out of every dollar. Soon we'll spend more money on the interest on our national debt than we pay for our national defense. I think our greatest risk to our national security is our fiscal instability. It's the debt that continues to grow. So I'm in this fight to get us on a balanced budget, to make sure that our economy grows by empowering the private sector to grow jobs in this country. And there are a number of things we can do in the short term, in terms of cutting cap and discretionary spending. Asking leaders of agency to prioritize their budgets. They asked me to do that when I was at ATF. I had $1 billion budget. And they came to me in the middle of the budget year and they said, we need you to reduce your budget in order to fund the war effort. And I gladly did. And I'll tell you, it did not affect the mission. The more money you give government, the more things government will find ways to spend it on. And they believe they're spending it on good things. And even if we assume that they are, it's not things that need to get done, it's things that government wants to get done. I'm absolutely opposed to Obamacare. I think it's a job killer. I serve on the board of an acute care, private, non-profit hospital, second largest provider of free care in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, also a physician practice group. I've spoken to a lot of people about health care over the years. I'll tell you, the things that people like about health care is quality of care and access. The things people complain about most is the cost of health care. Obamacare does not reduce the cost of health care, it does just the opposite. It increases the cost. I've spoken to small businesses that will no longer be able to afford the types of insurance they provide for their employees. You hear it all the time. Employers are willing to take the penalty as opposed to the cost of providing health care. So instead of making health care more affordable and more available, it's having just the opposite effect. And then the 2 things we like most about health care, access and quality of care, are going to erode. Fewer and fewer people that enter the profession because they try to pay for the cost of health care for reducing costs to the reimbursement to the providers. And that can only go so far. There's a tremendous amount of fraud and waste in the and I've seen it. We essentially have to go after it. They estimate anywhere from 3 to 10% of our tax dollars are wasted to fraud, waste, or abuse. So I'm in this race to make sure we're on a balanced budget. But I'll tell you this, I'll never take a position because it happens to be politically popular. I try to be very thoughtful about the positions I take. Recently there was a debate about whether or not they should close the so-called gun show loophole. I've done a lot of work. I've prosecuted dangerous people who've used guns in the commission of a crime. I headed up the agency that has responsibilities for regulating the firearms industry. I'm the only person in this race, Democrat and Republican, that said I would vote no. Because the people in the Senate are claiming that bill would somehow keep guns out of the hands of the adjudicated mentally ill, and it would do none of that. I know that from experience. I was at ATF at the time that the horrible Virginia Tech massacre took place. When we look closer at what happened, the killer at Virginia Tech went into a gun store and bought the guns. He has to fill out a form. They asked her a couple of questions. One question, you're a convicted felon. If you lie in that form, they'll catch you in the mix system. The other question they asked you, are you adjudicated mentally ill? Now, if somebody's adjudicated mentally ill and wants to buy a gun, how do you think you're going to answer that question? You're going to say no. When you give that form to the dealer, there's no way to verify whether or not that information is accurate. And that's what I said when I was ATF. You have to fix NICS. That proposal before the Senate did nothing. Did none of that. I'm a big believer in the Second Amendment. My experience is that people that have guns legally and use them lawfully should be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. The more regulations and laws you put in place have no effect on the criminals. I know that from experience. I've investigated and prosecuted thousands of them. There's a debate going on right now. She essentially, the person who was apprehended last night and turn him over to the United States military as an enemy combatant. I'll stand before you right now and say, I don't know, because I don't have all the facts. But our government should at least analyze whether or not it makes more sense from a national security, national interest perspective to hold him as an enemy combatant. And if it does, then they should hold him as an enemy combatant. I don't just quickly come to a conclusion because it seems to be politically popular to say that at this moment in time. If it doesn't make sense. I've done these types of cases at the U.S. Attorney's Office. We did the Richard Reed case, the Shoebone case. So I know what national security interest is all about. And I also know how determined that enemy is. I've seen it. I think it's critically important to use all the tools at our disposal, including holding people as enemy combatants, if it makes sense from a national security, national interest perspective. But if it doesn't, then what's the value of holding him as an enemy combatant, believing at some point in time he will be released? I'd say if there's no value holding him as an enemy combatant, if he doesn't have any intelligence that's going to serve our national security, national interest, then we should prosecute. We should prosecute him in the federal court and charge him with the crimes that Congress has given us, committing terrorism, possessing and using weapons of mass destruction, and essentially manufacturing and transporting explosive devices. And he's subject to the death penalty. So I stand here before you saying the government should consider enemy combatant designation, but without all the information, I can't tell you whether or not that's the right decision or the wrong decision. So I really would appreciate your vote on April 3rd. I think you actually have a straw poll here today. I actually appreciate your vote today. Welcome the opportunity. I'm the most fiscally conservative person in this race. I looked at the budget going back to 1990 in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, when I had an opportunity to influence the budget. As best that I can tell, the only time the state budget has actually been reduced was from fiscal year 1992 to fiscal year 1993. I'm talking about a real reduction. I'm not talking about, when somebody says, well, we cut $2 billion out of the budget, and they say, well, the budget went up by $2 billion. They say, oh yeah, that's because it would have went up by $4 billion if we didn't cut. I'm talking about real cuts. Or the cuts that you would feel if somebody said we cut your pay by a certain amount of money. Somebody says you cut your pay, you know what that means. So when somebody says I cut the budget, say, show me. We cut the budget in 1992. We had to do it because of the budget being unbalanced. And we put caps on capital spending when I served in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. And I'll tell you this, there's only one person in this race that's actually run against a career politician. I've done it twice. We beat them both times. We won the ballot 5 times. We won the ballot in the presidential election cycle as a Republican. Think about how lonely that might be as you're running as a kid and considering what happened this past November. Mitt Romney get 38% of the vote. And I was on the ballot in the presidential election cycle, Bob over 28% of the vote. We won that race. I was running for the first time as district attorney in Plymouth County. And as soon as the results came in from the city of Brockton, I knew we won that race. We had connected to the people in the city of Brockton. I don't think it's anything magical. The concerns the people in the city of Brockton had were the same concerns that constituents had in Plymouth, Middleborough, and Carver. If you just listen to people, if you take the lessons we learned from Abraham Lincoln, who I think was the greatest president serving at the most challenging times in our nation's history, you'd be able to find common ground and essentially get solutions to what appears to be problems that are unsolvable. I've been doing this my whole life. I'm running for the United States Senate because I don't want to serve as the United States Senate. I want to make what's been available to me available to the next generation. I think my generation is capable of doing that, and I think your generation deserves it.